South Carolina has knocked off Arkansas 48-22 in Columbia, South Carolina. We bring in Alex Galbraith. He is the gridiron expert, and you can join him right there. Just search his YouTube channel right there for some tremendous college football insight, predictions, prognostications, and so forth. So, Alex, as we discussed a few days ago, Arkansas being your team, this was supposed to be a close game. The Hogs were actually a 3-point favorite on the road. But things came unraveled here sometime, especially after halftime.
Yeah, it was a really, really brutal game if you were an Arkansas fan. And it was just a tale of two halves for both teams, I have to say. The first half was extremely tight. Probably should have been 10-10 going into halftime. South Carolina scored a touchdown there late, I think with about 4 seconds left in the second quarter. And then in the second half, Arkansas, as usual, just fell apart, as we've seen in recent history and recent games, like the Missouri game last year, Virginia Tech in the bowl game. They really just beat themselves in this game. South Carolina had 24 points off of turnovers, and Arkansas lost by 26. So you take away a few of those pick sixes and a fumble recovery for a touchdown, Arkansas definitely would have been able to stay in that game.
The Brett Bielema formula has been running the football on offense and being dominant up front, imposing the Arkansas will upon its opponent. But 106 yards rushing, 3.3 yards per carry. They certainly tried with 32 attempts, considering they were behind most of the second half and substantially once we got to about halfway through the third quarter. That's actually quite a few rushing attempts because obviously they had to go to the air after that with 37 attempts. But the ground game, nothing close to what we saw just a couple years ago with the likes of Alex Collins and Williams and so forth.
Yeah, it's not even close. Everybody says Brett Bielema's bread and butter is that offensive line and the ground and pound game, running it down your throat. And that really, like you just said, has not been the case since around 2013, 2015 when he started here at Arkansas. We have the talent there. Arkansas does. They have Devwall Whaley and Chase Hayden, who many have actually compared to Darren McFadden, the former Arkansas great. They're just not able to make it happen, And South Carolina, they have a pretty decent defense. Will Muschamp being a defensive coach, so I wasn't expecting a whole lot of rushing yards in this game. But the fact that in my opinion, Arkansas has just been very, very predictable, and especially in these games when they're down, they're behind, they constantly run the ball, and that's not working, and they need to change it. And I know a lot of people will say, well, they can't pass the ball either, and that's also the case because going back to the offensive line, they cannot give Austin Allen any protection whatsoever. I won't say that's the case for his 2 pick sixes, but that definitely was the case for his 73-yard fumble recovery that South Carolina had. And when he doesn't have time in the pocket, he's not going to be able to make good throws. He does hold on to the ball a little too long, but Arkansas's offense definitely needs a drastic change to make themselves not look so predictable in some of these games. I don't know if that is a coaching change and Dan Enos as the offensive coordinator, or they really need to maybe change the offensive line coach. I'm not sure, but something needs to change.
Alex, on the flip side, the concern has to be defensively. Giving up 48 points to a South Carolina team that has been struggling to score, really hasn't established the running game. We've got a South Carolina guy, Will Gunter from 107.5 The Game, who joins us each and every Friday. We break down South Carolina football through and through, and they have not been able to run the ball. If you check out the scoring outputs against teams in the SEC Eastern Division, they haven't scored much. Their last effort was 17 points at Texas A&M, and they explode for 48 points. Now, as you note, a lot of that was turnover related, but still being able to cash in for almost 50 points against Arkansas. And then considering the Hogs gave up a 50 spot in double overtime, I think it was, to Texas A&M, the defense not up to SEC Western Division standards either.
No, not one bit. And defense does win championships. You can have a stellar offense, but if your defense can't stop the opposing team, you're not going to be able to win games. And looking at this game, I thought Arkansas was going to have a solid chance defensively to play well. As we all know, South Carolina's Deebo Samuel, one of the most dynamic players in probably all of college football. He did break his leg earlier in the season, and I thought that was going to help out the Hogs a little bit, not having to cover him. They also had 3 offensive linemen out, and so I figured with that new 3-4 defense, they were going to be able to create some pressure and hopefully force Jake Bentley, the quarterback, into some dangerous throws, maybe get a few sacks in there, and they weren't able to do that all season long, and even last year they have not been able to create any pressure on the quarterback, which is a pretty big problem considering the lack of offensive linemen South Carolina had. The defense is definitely not up to these standards. I thought the 3-4 defense would have changed a lot for that. Paul Rose taking over, I thought they would have made a huge difference, but it hasn't so far. And once again, like I said earlier, I don't know if this requires a coaching change all around or what needs to happen. You thought they would have fixed some of these problems in the bye week before they face Texas A&M, and it clearly hasn't happened. And next week, I think it's going to even be more worse when they face Alabama on the road.
Yeah, it's a great point, as you mentioned, Alex, because South Carolina was really banged up along the offensive front, and Texas A&M was able to take advantage of that to the tune of 7 sacks last week. Arkansas apparently not as stellar and stout up front to be able to get into the backfield and make life miserable for Jake Bentley, who was able to hit on, let's say, 16 of 31 for $199. So mediocre statistics there, but the key, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers for Jake Bentley against this Arkansas defense. So, man, as we started to allude to the other day, Alex, Brett Bielema takes over a program that was down. It was a bit of a mess. The 3-9 finish the first year was understandable, and then you saw this ascension. You saw the next year them knock off Ole Miss and LSU when they were really good football teams, and you saw them get better and better and better, and it seemed to reach a crescendo about 2 years ago. Last year was a bit of a tail off, especially losing to Mizzou on the road, blowing a big lead, and then blowing another huge lead against Virginia Tech in the Belk Bowl. And this year, wow, the regression continues, and Brett Bielema's stay and his approach and what he's accomplishing and building there at Arkansas has to be questioned at this point.
It really does, Mark, and it's a huge problem for all Arkansas fans. I know as myself, I'm tired of the mediocrity. His first year, as all coaches, are going to be pretty rough. They went 3-9 to Bielema's first year, and as you said, they progressed every year since then. 2014, I believe they went 7-6. 2015, they went 8-5, and everybody else thought that this was last year and this year was going to be the year for Arkansas, and it really hasn't. Every year they always say, it's Arkansas's year. The offensive line's better, the defense is better, as we expected with Paul Rose, and it really hasn't. And I think this is time for Bielema to really leave Fayetteville because, as I've said, Arkansas continues to beat themselves, continues to blow huge leads, continues to lose to teams that they shouldn't lose to, and beat teams that they shouldn't beat. And that's not a problem. Bielema in his time here at Arkansas is 27-29, so a losing record. And I think his best record in the SEC since then was 5-3. So we're not able to beat the big dogs, and when we play games that matter, we're not able to pull it out, and they usually collapse in the second half. And I think all Arkansas fans are tired of that, and I think it really is time for him to go. Now, the problem with that is his buyout. I believe his buyout's around $15.3 million, and so a lot of Arkansas fans are upset about that because Jeff Long, the athletic director for Arkansas, doesn't want to get rid of him because of that buyout. But and that's something that should have been a concern, should have been addressed a long time ago. The buyout should never have been that huge, but it is. I'm afraid, even though fans want him gone, Bielema's going to stick around for a while until we can finally get rid of him.
Yeah, Alex, if only some of us had that issue. Mark, your video content's awful. Here's $15.5 million. Get out of here. But it doesn't work that way in most of the real life situations in the job market. South Carolina over Arkansas, 48-22. This was supposed to be basically a pick'em game with the Hogs actually a 3-point favorite on the road, losing to South Carolina in big fashion by 26 points. So Arkansas drops to 2-3. They are 0-2 in the SEC. And as you mentioned, most of the SEC Western Division slate is upcoming with some difficult games. Alabama, nothing needs to be said there. Auburn the next week, Ole Miss, and on down the line with LSU playing a little bit better, winning at the Swamp today. Alex Galbraith, you can join him on Gridiron Expert. It's a tremendous YouTube channel with a lot of fun analysis of college football, prognostications, and predictions. Alex, we appreciate you breaking things down for us.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me on.